Now that you have your student budget, I wanted to cover some things here because there might be some questions with how this thing looks. It's a little bit different than the checkbook register, but it's still, I mean, there's still a lot of similarities to it. So here's how you're going to set this thing up. The first part you'll see, it looks just like the standard checkbook register. You're going to have to put in your own bank account balance though. So each person's income, your income might be different from someone else's. So if you've got a checking account, then whatever you have for today, you should type in. Just for an example, so if I have $150, all right, in my bank account, I'm going to type in 150. Now the cash, some people use, some people don't. I generally don't use it, but for the purpose of this activity, we're trying to figure out your spending habits and what you spend money on. So, for the sake of this project, you should include your cash balance. So if you have, in your wallet, I don't know, $75, right? You would type in $75. So you'll see that your actual account and your bank account balance now are at 225, and that balance gets carried down here. So what I want you to do, I want you to just track your spending. So whatever you spend money on, and that's money going in and money going out. You'll notice there's no cleared or pending. I've removed that from this assignment because I'm not concerned about that. This isn't necessarily balancing a checkbook here. We're just more interested in trying to figure out how spending works. When you scroll over here, you'll see there's some categories, category total and a category percent. This is all based off of your total deposits and your total withdrawals. So as you type in a category, it will calculate these totals for you. And I'll go through some examples here in a minute so that you can see that. But just to give a brief explanation, you're going to have 30 days to work on this. Actually, more precisely, 31. This is going to be due when you look at the calendar. It's going to be due on October 26th. That's a Friday. So when I go to October here, you'll see it's a Friday. October 26th is when this is going to be due. So you're going to have 31 days to work on this. Now, don't wait until the last minute. But I should see spending habits here. So when you start, if you start today, for example, 9/25, I would type in a description. Maybe you went and got gas. Okay, so if you go to the BP down the street there, you would type in BP or BP gas, or however you want to set up your description is up to you. Now, when you get to category, this is something that you gotta pay attention to. You got to make sure that your category matches over here, and this is your budget here. All right. This is where you have got to figure out where you're spending your money. Okay. So you've got to go through and look at the categories. You've got saving, emergency fund, investments, a savings account, college, a car, computer, utilities. None of you will really have any utilities other than maybe a cell phone if you pay that cell phone bill. What do you do for food? Do you spend money at school lunch? Which if you're buying a school lunch, you need to account for that. If you're going out to eat with friends, if you're buying snacks at the vending machine, you need to account for that. You need to account for all of that. Your spending isn't going to be very much right now, but this is to help you figure out where you're spending your money. Clothing, how much money for clothes, how much money for shoes, transportation. What are you doing here? You've got fuel. That's where that BP would go. So that would be your description, or excuse me, that would be your category. When you go to set that up, you've got oil change, car wash. health, if you're going out and buying makeup or getting medication, or you're going to the doctor, whatever. If you pay your car insurance every month, this is where you would put that money in, and it would show up over here on the actual. On the personal side, you've got hair care, other things like that. I've got cosmetics in here twice, so we'll just delete that one there. But you've got to figure these out here, and these are your, you got pocket money, whatever, music, recreation, movies, concerts, sporting events. Okay, I've got debts on here too. You shouldn't have any debts, but that's just for those purposes. Okay, so I've got BP gas on my category. Then I would type in fuel, and maybe you spend, I don't know, say you spend $30. Okay, so that would be a withdrawal. You type in $30 here, and now you'll see over here in the categories, there's fuel. There's my category total, and right now I spent 13.33% based off of that $225. So I spent 13.3%. So now when I go over to my budget, all right, it'll show up here. When I go down to fuel, there's my fuel. Okay, it shows up right here. You don't have to worry about this budgeted column yet, because you don't know what you're spending your money on. Therefore, there's no way for you to determine what your budget's going to be. In order to set up a budget, you've got to figure out what you're spending money on first. Okay, so don't worry about that. I should expect to see some money, and I just plugged in a formula here, so now you can see your total expenses based off of that. So that should be the 225 there, actually. So in order to get that fixed, that's pretty easy to do. And we base that off of that 225. But for right now, that's just because it's set up incorrectly. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, so there's the 225, and this is just going to set to equal this. So this is the same sheet that you're going to use now for the budgeted. You'll be able to type that in a little bit later. But for again, for this assignment, you don't have to worry about it really. But you'll see here your month total right now. Your income's at 225. Your total expenses are at 30. Then your actual balance now is at 195, and your bank balance is also at 195. So you'll see when you come over to here, you'll see 195 and 195. All right. So let's say you go somewhere else. Maybe you go out to eat with your friends. I don't know. Maybe you go to McDonald's. Okay. So that would be a restaurant. Maybe you spend, I don't know, maybe it's $9.95 and you put it on your debit card, whatever. So when you go and you type that in from the receipt, or you look online, you see there's the $9.95. All right, now you've got $185.05 left. So when you scroll over, okay, there's your restaurant, there's the $9.95, and there's the $195 as well. Okay, and when I scroll down, now notice here, it didn't show up. So why didn't it show up? Well, you got to look at your category. Okay, you got to look at your category. So I typed in restaurant, but under my budget, it says restaurants. It's plural. So you've got to make that change. You've got to double check. So here I just have to type in the S. Restaurants, it's plural. Now when I come over, it should be updated, $185.05. There's my total expenses. Right now I've spent almost $40. Okay, so that's another thing you're going to have to pay very close attention to. If something doesn't show up, check your category and check to make sure the category of your budget matches the category of your spending. That's going to be critical. And then it's just a matter of going through and plugging in the data as you go. You know, anything for the one day, you know, if you've got multiple items in one day, you don't have to go back and plug in the date over and over and over again. You know, for example, if I don't spend anything else until the 28th of September, then I would just type in 928 here, and then I can plug in my description. So maybe I get concert tickets. So you would type in concert tickets, you know. So then my category for that, if you don't remember, you can go back to your budget. You know, that's a recreation. So you just type in concert so that it matches up. So now I go here, I type in concert, and maybe those were $75. So once I do that, now again, everything gets updated. So now I should have 110.05. It matches here. I scroll over. There's my actual account balance right there. And as I scroll down, now I can see there's my concert. There's the $75. So everything matches up. So you got to be very careful with this too, not to destroy the integrity of the formulas. And there's my category as well. There's my concert, my 33%. Okay, everything's rocking and rolling here. So, you know, this is how you're going to set this up. It's pretty easy to do, but again, the key is making sure that you actually do it. It only works if you actually do it. I can't emphasize that enough. I've also added the Dave Ramsey baby steps over here. I talked about that early on, but it's just something nice to have. You know, as just a reminder. You know, these are goals. Remember, I've talked about in class. If you have goals written down, you're more likely to achieve them. This is something too where you could do every day. You could write some goals down that you want right here, maybe in place of the baby steps. If there are goals that you have in mind, plug them in right here, and then you'll be seeing them. You'll look at them every single day. Okay, so this is how you set this up, and this should go all the way down through the 31 days. Okay, so this is due again on October 26th. Make sure that you follow up with this, and it's pretty easy to do. I'm not asking for anything else. This is all I'm asking for is the data, the numbers, and that it matches up with your budget here. You know, and this is how you start off your budget, because then the following month you can take these numbers and have kind of an estimate on where you're spending money at, and you can make your budget bigger or smaller based off of that. So if there are questions as you're working through this, let me know. But you got a month to get this done, and I think you should have a good grasp on where you're spending your money then from here on out.